Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, sharing some further insights for you. Okay, now Mercury is retrograde, as we all know, and I've had some issues this afternoon. I bought an amazing microphone in order to, make the quality of the sound better for you guys. And I just can't seem to get it working. It's working with very low vol. Anyway, basically, long story short, I've already done this video and now I'm having to have to redo it. So I guess that says I'm pretty motivated, really. Okay, I do have transiting Pluto conjunct my Mars, so that's giving me an incredible sense of willpower, you could say, and motivation and intention. All right, so until I figure out what I'm going to do with that, we'll just have to do with the sounds that the computer picks up, and I apologize that it's not the best of quality, but I will get there. Please be patient with me. All right, so what I'd like to do today is bring into conversation the cycle of the sun and the moon again, and I'm going to focus on the new moon phase today. The previous video I did the balsamic phase, which is the last phase out of the 8. Now, just in summary, just to revise, there are 8 lunation phases, and every single person is born into one of those phases. The balsamic phase, which I've already covered, so go to that video if you want to know about that phase. I suggest you do. It's a very, very good video, very important information. Because even if you were not born during the balsamic phase, at some stage in your life, through your secondary progressed moon, you will experience and encounter a balsamic moon phase. So today's topic is the new moon phase, and so when one is born into a new moon phase, what are the characteristics of that? What's the archetypal energy? Before I go there, what I'd like to do is to kind of give you guys a visual demonstration of how to identify a new moon and a new moon phase, okay? Now, most of you would know that a new moon is defined by the sun and the moon aligning together in the heavens, right? That's a new moon, obviously. And when the nodes are involved, it's actually a solar eclipse. Now, what you need to know is that a new moon is defined by the moon being anywhere from 0 degrees to 45 degrees ahead of the sun. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen and demonstrate for you what this looks like. So I've chosen Elvis Presley, the singer, who's clearly no longer with us. So this is the chart of Elvis Presley, and he was actually born during a new moon. Now, for those of you that are beginners or not that familiar with identifying phases, even a new moon phase, which is certainly the easiest one to identify, and the full moon phase is as well. But what you need to know is, as I said, if the moon is anywhere from 0 to 45 degrees ahead of the sun, the moon moves faster. So the moon, we're looking at the moon moving away from the sun, ahead of the sun. It will be a new moon if it's anywhere from 0 to 45 degrees. Now, if you look at this chart here on the screen, you will see that Elvis has his sun at 17 degrees of Capricorn. And you will see that his moon down here is at 2 degrees of Pisces. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with phases, new moons, and counting astrological degrees and so forth, this is a very quick tutorial just to hopefully teach you. If you look at the distance between the sun and the moon here, you might make the assumption, which would be incorrect, the assumption that this is not a new moon because the moon is quite far away from the sun. Indeed it is, but it actually falls within the category or definition of a new moon because of the distance between the sun and the moon, which actually happens to be exactly 45 degrees. Now, the way to identify that is you look at the sun, which is 17 degrees of Capricorn. The moon would have been at 17 degrees of Capricorn sometime earlier. It's moved all through the rest of Capricorn, then it's moved through the whole sign of Aquarius, and it's stepped into the first 2 degrees of Pisces. So what you're doing is you're pretending that the moon was here, because it was at some point, and you're saying, okay, if the moon was at 17 degrees of Capricorn, how many degrees do I need to count forward until I get to 17 degrees of Aquarius? That's actually 30 degrees. So from 17 Capricorn to 17 Aquarius, that's 30 degrees, okay? How many degrees are remaining in order for Aquarius to be completed, for the moon to complete in the sign of Aquarius? Well, 17 degrees of Aquarius, each sign equals 30 degrees, so there's another 13 degrees left. 17 degrees of Aquarius, another 3 gets you to 20, another 10 gets you to 30, so that's 13 in total. Then we need to count another 2 degrees because the moon is not at 30 degrees of Aquarius or 29. It is in 2 degrees of Pisces. So backtracking, going back from 17 Capricorn to 17 Aquarius, that's 30 degrees. There's another 13 degrees remaining to complete Aquarius, and then there's another 2 degrees where the moon has moved into Pisces. So if you add all that up, you've got 30 from 17 to 17. That's 30, 17 Capricorn to 17 Aquarius. Then you've got another 15 degrees in total from the end of Aquarius, from 17 Aquarius to 2 degrees of Pisces. So essentially, the distance between the sun and the moon is 45 degrees exactly, which means that Elvis was born during a new moon and he only just made it. If he was born 2 hours later, that probably would not be the case. So hopefully that makes sense to you. It is a little bit, tricky to get your head around if you're not used to calculating and counting degrees and so forth, but it's a good practice to start, because this is a major foundation to astrology. You're working with a 360 degrees circle, which is constantly being divided depending on what we are looking at. In this case, we're looking at a phase which is defined by 0 degrees up to 45 degrees. That is considered a new moon phase. And in fact, it's a new phase period, because you could have any other bodies, any other planets being in a new phase together as well, in terms of the aspect that they are forming. I'll perhaps do a video at a later stage and just explain the phases in terms of other planets as well. But just to give you an example, you could have a Mars-Venus conjunction in your birth chart. Now, they're in a conjunction, yes, that's the aspect, but are they in a balsamic phase or are they in a new phase? So that's what the aspect is determining in terms of the distance. And you're always counting the planet that's moving quicker. Anyway, look, leave that alone, because it'll just get a bit too confusing. Just pay attention to this, what I've shown you here, that the sun and the moon have 45 degrees between them, and we're counting the moon moving away from the sun, ahead of the sun, because it's the fastest moving body, and that 45 degrees distance between them is what's defining that Elvis was born during a new moon. Have a, pause this and have a look at it and have a think about it. For those of you that are beginners, naturally for those of you that are more advanced, you won't need to do that, but I'm trying to trying to give enough information that will help beginners and others that are perhaps more advanced as well, as on as many levels as I can. Okay, stop sharing my screen. Now, back to the new moon. The new moon phase is defined or characterized by the energy of Aries, right? It's a brand new cycle. To begin with, it's a brand new cycle. If we have 8 phases and the first phase is the new moon, then we can understand that the new moon is the beginning point of that whole 8 lunation phase cycle, which by progression takes approximately 30 years. I'll go into that a little bit later. So some key words for the new moon phase people. So as I said, somebody will be born in a new phase, and if you're not born into it, at some stage in your life you will experience a new moon phase. Okay, so it's important to understand it whether you were born in this or not, because you will encounter it at some stage in your life. So we've determined the distance that you need to calculate between the sun and the moon, what defines a new phase, a new moon, which is 0 to 45 degrees. Now going on to some key words. In fact, I just want to read a little statement here. If you think about the new moon, it's the absence of light is what's defining this new moon. And it's the absence of light is what actually enables the new moon phase person to have a vision that can be felt and sensed but not actually seen, because there's no light there yet. It's literally the emergence, the birth of something coming through. It's the seed that's planted underground, but that's just popped up and ready to project itself onto its environment. The brand new energy, brand new cycle is characterized by abundance of energy, incredibly strong instincts, strong intuition, impulsive, fearless, very Aries type of energy. It's the Aries archetypal energy, if you like, really. The soul incarnates to emerge and project this brand new cycle, brand new energy. Now, when somebody's born into a new moon, it doesn't necessarily follow that they are a new soul, for instance, coming in and, beginning, as it were. The more likely explanation would be that the soul has actually already experienced through other lifetimes the entire lunation cycle, the 8 phases, and it's now arrived again at a threshold where it's ready to project into a new cycle, which will take another 8 lifetimes. But in the one incarnation, whilst we are born during a particular moon phase, as I said, through the technique of progressions, we get to experience all 8 phases. And well, for a start, we get to experience all 8 phases every single month in terms of the transiting moon. But it is the progressed moon that holds something quite substantial and key and meaningful to the cycle that it's actually the cycle that is unfolding in your life through your birth chart. So the new moon is a conjunction, right? As we know, sun moon conjunction is what I mean. Because it's a new moon, it's symbolically, it's the energy of feeling that, because the previous phase is the balsamic, which is right at the end of this massive cycle. So when you complete the balsamic and you're born into the new moon phase, there's a sense of coming out of the darkness and getting ready to meet that light, to meet a whole brand new cycle, brand new energy, brand new beginnings. It's a really exciting sort of energy. It's quite impulsive as well, because new moon phase people, they act through instinct, and that instinct is very strong in the physical body. So there's a lot of wisdom held in the physical body when the new moon phase really starts to understand who they are. And that's part of what the experience is about when you're born in a new moon phase. It's about trying to understand who you are and your identity. And that naturally is going to come through a number of different brand new experiences. So new moon phase people are here to begin things. They're pioneers and leaders as well. They don't act from a mental state, so they don't reflect and consider and deliberate and analyze things when they are going into an experience or starting something or taking a particular direction. New moon phase are all about taking new directions, quite impulsively, no thought given. They don't need to give thought, because what they're acting through is that pure emergence, that pure energy that has no thought. It just simply acts, which is why they've got very strong instincts. So they are driven and motivated and have desires to simply act out into their environment. So they can be quite risky, quite, risk takers. They don't deliberate and sit back and think, oh, if I do this, then that might happen, or if I take that path, then it might have those consequences. They don't operate like that. They operate purely in the moment on instinct, 100%. And that actually serves them quite well, because they need to operate from that level. This is the energy that they are born into, that they need to experience, they need to give birth to, and need to live, essentially. So you can't hold them back. They're very charismatic people. They have like a star-like quality to them. They shine, they radiate, they give off a little warmth. They're very energized. They're very enthusiastic. These are not cynical people. They're very optimistic and enthusiastic and excited about getting into life and getting into new directions and getting into new paths and, experiencing things. You can't hold them back. They are forever moving forward into new directions. So their energy is quite infectious, because people who are more inclined to be stuck in perhaps certain patterns or behaviors, or have a fear of stepping into new things, well, new moon people can be really great to hang around with, because they can get you feeling really motivated and inspired and enthusiastic, and there's a sense of excitement about life and a sense of excitement about starting new things and just exploring, being adventurous, all that kind of energy. It's a beautiful, beautiful energy. New moon phase people, that is a new moon phase person that is born into that phase, they carry this energy with them their entire life. It's an energy that exudes out of them, that comes through their natural way of operation. How they live their life is through this phase. So they might be the person that starts a lot of new things in their life. May not necessarily complete everything, but in one way it doesn't really matter, because they are here to find many new directions in order to get a taste and get a feel and experience lots of new different things. That's essentially their journey, and that's essentially that's the evolutionary stage that they're at the moment. As I said, they're very spontaneous, very impulsive. New moon phase is also a very subjective energy. It's Aries, so it's totally subjective. It doesn't have that objectivity yet. Objectivity is Libra, its opposite sign. So the full moon phase carries that objectivity. So new moon phase lacks that awareness and objectivity, but it's also what enables them to do things that many other people wouldn't do, because they wouldn't have that spontaneous instinctual urge and courage to just go for it. And that's the benefit of the new moon phase. So they don't work through logic and reasoning, and they don't think, well, if I take this step, then that's likely to be the outcome. They just take the step. They just step into it. They go for it. They don't think about what's going to happen later. They don't care. It doesn't matter. As long as they can step into something and, be feel alive, it's that pure vital force energy. If you think about a baby, an infant, when it's born and it has that pure force, vital energy, that's a new moon phase. And speaking of babies, new moon phase, they also carry that energy of a new baby in the sense where they can be quite naive. They've got a real innocence type of quality to their nature and their personality, which is what enables them to have that sense of awe and excitement about life and just stepping into all sorts of new things. Covered that. So I guess a couple of the challenges for new moon phase people are revolved around, well, sometimes lack of awareness and lack of objectivity. That might be an issue at times. But overall, probably not, because they're not here to become illuminated, as it were. They're here to simply experience in the moment. That's the most powerful, rewarding experience for them. And, you know, they'll fall and they'll get back up and they'll learn, and they may not do that again, and they might not take that particular direction again, but they can't be hurt by these experiences, because it is inherent in this archetypal energy of a new moon to act in this way, to simply be and act. You know, it's Aries. The other challenge can be sometimes a lack of confidence, which is not immediately obvious on the surface, but it might be something that the new moon phase feels within themselves. And that's simply related to the fact that they are trying to find their identity. They're trying to find who they are, which is why they feel a strong sense and urge to start all these new projects or new directions or new paths or new experiences. It's a way of them getting to know who they are, their identity, what works for them, what do they really enjoy, where will they excel, where will they thrive. They need to just step in. It's like stepping into the fire and just going for it, basically. So they're the main sort of features and characteristics of a new moon phase. Now, as I said, you may be born into a new moon phase or you may not, but at some stage in your life you will experience a new moon phase. Now, the secondary progressed cycle of the progressed moon takes 30 years to do a complete cycle. Okay, so if you were born during a new moon phase, then the next new moon you will experience will be at approximately 30 years of age, because new moon to new moon takes 30 years. So depending on where you were born in these 8 phases will determine at which point in life and which age in life you're going to experience a new moon phase. But whenever you do experience it, it's a really exciting time. Even if you're not born into a new moon phase, at some stage you will have a secondary progressed new moon. That's a very, very beautiful time for starting new projects, for starting new ventures, for entering new directions in your life. It's a very powerful energy and it's very exciting, and it has a lot of life force and energy behind it that motivates you and inspires you and gives you that sense of encouragement and impulse and instinct to act on things that you otherwise perhaps maybe would be more reserved about. Just saw something floating. That was weird. Okay, so there are 2 things going on with regards to the moon phase that you may currently be in and your secondary progressed moon. So at any given moment in your life, you are in a particular secondary progressed lunation phase, which goes for 3.5 years. Every secondary progressed lunation phase has a lifespan of 3.5 years approximately. So for 3.5 years, you might be in a new moon phase starting next week, or starting next year, or you might be in a balsamic phase, or a crescent phase, or a full moon phase. You will be in one of those phases at this point in your life. Each phase has very distinctive characteristics. I've done the balsamic, now I've done the new moon for you. I'll do the subsequent phases following this video. So I'll do the rest of the phases so that everybody has the opportunity to understand every single phase, whether you were born into it or whether you are experiencing it via a secondary progress method. So you're in one of those lunation phases for 3.5 years of your life at any given moment. In addition to that, what happens is that secondary progress moon, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the secondary progress moon, which is the relationship between the sun and the moon when you progress your chart. Okay, so the secondary progress sun and the secondary progress moon. That's the secondary progress lunation cycle. So you're in one of those phases at any given time, and at the same time, what you can do, which I do with all my work that I do for readings for people, I look at where the secondary progress moon is in relation to their birth chart. So, say for example, you are about to go into a secondary progress new moon phase, which is a beautiful, beautiful time, by the way. It's very powerful. Let's just say that you were going to experience that new moon phase in your 6th house, because the secondary progress moon happens to be at 15 degrees of Scorpio, and 15 degrees of Scorpio is in your 6th house. So that secondary progress moon then is highlighting your 6th house, which is what? It's health, it's mind-body connection, it's the daily rituals, daily routines, it's small pets. 6th house is small pets, by the way, for those of you who didn't know. So cats, dogs, birds, mice, spiders, snakes, whatever. It's all 6th house. Large animals are 12th house. So if the secondary progress moon is in your 6th house, you know, the very typical manifestation of that is usually health. An interest in your overall health lights up. So you may change your diet, you may start to meditate more, you may start exercising more, you may start trying to work on your sleep, you know, cycles, and you know, make your sleep better. And it's an awareness and a consciousness where your focus and direction is specifically on 6th house matters. That's what the secondary progress moon will do in the 6th house. And if you are in a new moon while the secondary progress moon is in your 6th house, then there's a whole new cycle just being born. Literally a whole new cycle, because it's the birth of that 8 lunation phase, and it's starting in your 6th house. So it's carrying a pretty important message there for you just in your 6th house. And it's a lot of new beginnings in all things to do with the 6th house. So it's very, very important. So that's basically in a nutshell. I just wanted to give some keywords and characteristics of how the new moon phase feels, how it's experienced. If you are born into it, you have that theme pretty much your whole life. And if you are not born into it and you have it at some stage in your life, then a 3.5 year period of your life is characterized by the things I've shared today. In addition to that, the secondary progress moon will be, it spends 2.5 years or thereabouts in each house in your birth chart. So as the secondary progress moon is progressing around your natal chart, it is spending 2.5 years in each house. There are 12 houses, as we know. Each house represents very specific areas of life. So when the secondary progress moon is in one of those houses, it's shining the light in that area of your life, and it's bringing your attention and your focus to it. And it's enabling you to address things, to shift things, to transform things, to heal things, to adjust things, to release things. A whole bunch of stuff's going on. Secondary progress moon is a very powerful predictive tool to use to help one understand a fundamental theme and layer that's pretty much colouring that area of life, depending on where the secondary progress moon is in relation to your birth chart. But if you're about to have a secondary progress new moon phase, then you know, all I can say is that's awesome, and you will love it. So whether it's now or whether it's been, have a look if you've already had it, and have a look at that period of your life, and you know, have a think about what was going on, and how things felt and what started for you at that point. Because the new moon phase, at any time you go into it, it's literally the beginning of a 30-year cycle, which is going to unfold, and then, you know, it will come back to being new moon again at some stage in life. Now, most of us experience 2 of those cycles, because each cycle takes 30 years. So most people, you could say, live up to the age of 60 at least. Some people live up to the age of 90, so therefore they'll have the cycle 3 times. But it's not about counting how many times you're going to have this cycle necessarily. It's about the whole journey and unfoldment that's taking place when it begins and you know, when it ends, so to speak. And of course, what phase you were born into, because that's going to highlight and color a very large portion of how you operate in your life, essentially. It's the sun-moon relationship. It's the connection between the 2 lights in the heavens, 2 lights, the 2 major lights, the solar and lunar energies, which is the feminine and the masculine, the divine feminine, divine masculine, and what relationship they have to each other when you were born. You know, that's what a lunation phase is all about. So I think I'll leave it there, because this was the second time I did this video for today, and I think I've had enough of talking for today, and I probably just need to have some downtime and try and sort out my new microphone, which has been a little bit frustrating. But Mercury is retrograde, and I'm not, you know, really tech savvy. I just, you know how to get my way around most basic things, and certainly know how to get my way around astrological stuff. But yeah, I'm not really into computers. So anyway, leave it there, and I just want to say thank you so much to all of you who have sent me emails and expressed very beautiful appreciation towards me and towards my work and what I'm doing. It really means a lot to me in my heart and soul, actually, because this work is from my heart and soul. The mercurial component and the Taurus component, which is the throat, which enables me to verbalize, and the mercurial, you know, left brain enables me to just, you know, put things in order, as it were, is a secondary part. The main thing for me is that when I speak about this stuff, and when I teach it, or when I do readings, or whatever the case may be, I feel like my soul's being fed. You know, I feel a real oneness with this, and that's basically why I do it. So thank you so much for all your beautiful comments and all your amazing questions, which prompt me to, you know, perhaps share things that I forgot or overlooked, or, you know, add extra information. I'm always happy to do that as best I can. I'll leave my email address underneath this video in the information, so that you can contact me if you have any questions, or if you want to have a reading. The other thing is, you could also have a reading just based on what lunation phase you were born into, and what lunation phase you are currently in now, and where is your secondary progressed moon now. That's a whole reading unto itself. I try and integrate that into my actual readings, but it is hard to put everything into an hour, so I'm very limited, and therefore I kind of have to hone in on what I feel is important for the person at the time. You know, I tune into the person as much as I can, and try and get a sense of what they really need to hear at the moment, at this point in their life, because, as you know, in astrology there are so many layers. It's multi-layered, you know. It's there's so many layers. It's impossible to unpack and explore every single layer in just one reading. So it's useful to have several readings, actually, just on focusing on different parts of the chart and different dimensions of the chart as well. Okay, thanks so much for watching, guys, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Look after yourselves, and Mercury is still retrograde. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's not the end of the world. You know, Mercury goes retrograde a couple of times, several times a year. It's not, you know, we just get on with life and we do what we do. We just have a few hiccups along the way. And you know, that's the same with every other planet retrograde, really. But, you know, obviously with other planets there's different meanings, and perhaps longer periods of planets being in retrograde and so forth, which carries a different message. But you know, that's another story. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you. See you all soon. Blessings. Bye for now.